Hey everyone, welcome to the vault, the advanced section. You've made it, congratulations. Now, this is going to be the most important video in the vault if you want to build muscle mass. It's going to be all about progressive overload. Now, it's going to take a few minutes, so stick with me because there's a lot to cover, but by the end of the video, I guarantee you'll be in a much better place with your training and how to implement progressive overload properly. I'd like you to imagine progressive overload as progress and stimulus. We continually want to have progression and we continually want to provide new stimulus to allow for the progression. But like everything in life, especially bodybuilding, there's always a what if. The biggest what if, generally with progressive overload, is you just won't be able to lift any more weight. Let's say, for example, you plateau on 40 kilo dumbbells on a chest press and you're only able to do 4 reps. You've got 80 kilos multiplied by 4, which is going to give you around 320 kilos moved. You can't move anymore. So we need to look at other areas, the it depends parts, about what we can manipulate to increase your stimulus that's going to get past, what's going to help you get past that plateau. So something might be is that we manipulate the repetitions. So instead of doing 4 reps on the 40s, if we drop down to the 37.5s and do 6 reps, we've actually moved 450 kilos. So pro rata, we've actually moved more weight. As long as things being equal, i.e. failure, we must always go to failure. That is the most important thing. If we want to progress, we must reach failure. We've reached muscular failure a different way. So yes, we haven't progressively overloaded with the weight, but we've progressively overloaded with the repetitions. Another stimulus could be time and tempo. To get past your plateau, you might want to work on lifting the 40s slower. So maybe 1, 2, 3 seconds up, 1, 2, 3 seconds down. Again, if you're lifting for double the amount of time that you historically have been, you've presented a new progression, a new stimulus. We may have number of sets. Sorry, I've got my little notes around the corner there. Number of sets. So let's say normally you do 3 sets on the 40s. Well, what about if you did 4, 5 or 6 sets? So if we go back to the initial comparison, you think about that overall weight moved. Overall, you've moved more weight because you've done more sets. So that is still an element of progression. I hope you're still with me. Now, with progressive overload, there's a lot of other considerations to take place. So it's not just about, as I've discussed, can we lift more? It's can we manipulate our other variables? So can we manipulate our repetitions, our time under tension, and our number of sets? You could then also look at other training stimuluses such as drop sets and rest pauses, but I'm going to cover them in a different video because they're slightly different. We just want to focus on progressive overload. How can you continually progress? So just to recap, you can progress continually by introducing a bigger stimulus. That could either be load, i.e. the weight that you lift, that could be the number of repetitions, that could be the time under tension, how long it takes you to lift that weight, or it could be the number of sets, how many sets you do in a particular movement pattern. However, the further it depends comes into play with other factors. So we've got load management, injuries, movement patterns, lifestyle, training age, and other exercise that you might be doing. So for example, load management. I'm going to combine load management with training age and injuries. So let's say you're like me, you've got a high training age, you've trained for many years, presented your body and put your body through a lot of stimulus. I need to manage the load carefully. If I continue just keep throwing more stimulus at me, because I have a high training age, I've trained for a long time, so in order to get a shock, to get a stimulus, to stimulate my muscles, I'm going to need to do something exceptional. I risk getting injured because I can't manage the load effectively. I'm not able to recover as much, and because of my lifestyle, I'm not totally preparing to be able to do recovery. So if you're someone with a very busy lifestyle, maybe you like to have a good drink at the weekend, your nutrition isn't quite on point as what it should be, you need to be very careful about what stimulus you use to progressively overload and how often you do it. You may only be able to use some of these training techniques once or twice a week versus 4 or 5 times. Your other 3 or 4 sessions, you might be working at 80% versus 110. Okay, give another example. Other exercise. Let's say, which is quite popular at the moment, run clubs and running. You still like to have a lot of your weight training, but you're also introducing running. You've introduced a new movement pattern that has lots of repetition and repetitive movement. If therefore your overall energy expenditure is increased and also your risk to injury heightened because you're presenting new load with your running alongside new load and stimulus with your training. One of them is going to have to give in order to maintain a nice balance. If you keep burning the candle at both ends, you're just going to get injured again. So the it depends comes from all these wonderful stimulus. You also have to factor in what's going on in your life. To kind of round it up, you need to become quite intrinsically aware of how you feel. So if you're stiff or you're tired, start looking at the variables within your life and trying to figure out what's causing that. Is it that you're just presenting your body with too much stimulus? Is it that you're not getting adequate recovery? What is it that's causing you to be slightly off? And then look to address that. Or alternatively, choose carefully which, based upon your body and your movement patterns, which stimulus you're going to use wisely. So for myself, it would be better to probably not do more weight or more sets on my top sets, because my risk of injury is quite high. I've got lots of injuries, my body's worn down, and my movement patterns aren't great as a result of my injuries. So I'd be better reducing the load and increasing the time under tension and also the number of repetitions. I'm placing less stress upon my body in terms of putting me at the injury side of the spectrum, and I'm able to still progressively overload. I hope a lot of that makes sense and puts a lot of perspective onto your training. It's very difficult because it depends to give a personalized overview of your own training without getting to know you more. Please, by all means, get in touch with me. I would love to help you out. But the biggest take home is you want to increase the stimulus. It doesn't just have to be the amount of weight that you're moving, but consider that it depends. Consider your lifestyle, your exercise history, your injury history, your movement patterns, your load management. If you can consider all of those and get a nice balance, on the days you're feeling good, brilliant. Let's push on, let's work really, really hard. On the days that, and introduce new stimulus. On the days you're feeling not 100%, you need to be aware of what's going on and possibly reduce your stimulus in order to protect yourself for your overall long-term goals. Hope to speak to you soon. I hope that puts a lot of context onto your own training. Please do reach out to me. I'd love to be able to help. Thank you.